happens often on the show is how questions hit the audience. Because I try to, and I'm learning and I've learned a lot, but I try to kind of push artists a little bit on their psychology, on their emotions. 8,000 people they actually did half the performance. He just said nothing and just like took it all in, and it was amazing. Let's try and say this a lot, like never judge the quality of a performance, musically, academically, socially, whatever, even athletically, by how many people are in the room.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of In the Chair. Today we are in the chair with Dr. Aaron Rochlen. Aaron is a clinical professor for the Department of Educational Psychology at the University of Texas at Austin. I really want to say all these titles, Aaron.
Oh, thank you.
Program director for the Moritz Center for Societal Impact. And what we're going to talk probably most about, but also in relation to the others, is host of Under the Rock, in Austin, Texas, Under the Rock ATX, which kind of combines his clinical psychology background with a passion for music. So, Aaron, welcome to the episode here.
Thank you so much for having me. What a warm introduction. We can just end it after those titles. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you for coming and goodbye. Uh, no, I was so excited. Usually it's, here's a rock band from Decatur. So
Thanks for taking a chance on something different. I appreciate you.
yeah, so we've known each other for a few years now, and got to meet each other through the Austin soccer community, which is also not psychology and
Yeah,
also not live music.
yeah.
But here we are talking about music. Um, so if you can share with folks kind of a little bit about yourself and kind of how you've morphed from an academic setting to going to clubs late at night to listen to music and feature new artists.
Wow, thank you for that opportunity. I think briefly, like you said, I've been an academic and a professor and a psychologist for a long time, a soccer guy as well. But kind of at the core, I've always been a music guy. I've always, grew up following bands, listening, being moved by music and lyrics. And as I started to teach more, I used music more to communicate different um, psychology principles, diagnosis, conceptual factors, etc. And I kind of became known in among my students for doing that. Even got a cute nickname, Doc Rock, here and there, which I've been called much worse than that, so I'll take it. And then I think kind of my big break, if you will, was I used music from a band named Dawes that do you know Dawes? You've
Oh yeah,
heard of them.
yeah.
Yeah. And I'm a big fan, but I used his music, Taylor Goldsmith music, in my intro to counseling class to teach different concepts about existentialism, about psychoanalysis, etc. And the students loved it. And I think it served as a useful purpose for learning about those concepts. But long story short, Taylor Goldsmith ended up finding out about how I was using my music. And I got an email from him, and I was so excited to open that email. And it was kind of a Dear Dr. Rockland, I'm so honored by how you're using my music in this purpose. I've always been interested in psychology, etc. Got to meet him, and then I actually had kind of a backyard concert with Taylor Goldsmith where he played and I discussed the songs and the lyrics and drew parallels to psychology and counseling, and it was kind of a big hit. Um, and actually, that was just after COVID, but something in my mind, as well as a few close friends, were like, "Aaron, you're pretty good at that. You should think about bringing that to a larger audience." And that's where kind of the idea happened. Simultaneously, I also started having some really positive relationships with some bands in the community. A big one that's been influential to me is the West Texas Exiles that are now on the Americana charts, number 16 just this week. So I started this concept Under the Rock, kind of fusing psychology with music. They were my first guests, which it always kind of takes a guest like that to take a chance on me and a new concept. And the show was a hit. And the music world, just like many worlds, is kind of like establishing some street cred, right? So when I got them, Pat Byrne was at that first show. He's a big deal. He did the second show, then Madam Radar. I've always been doing good videos of it, so it kind of grew Instagram. And now I'm doing shows about once a month at Saxon Pub. So a little bit more details than that, but that's kind of how it happened and how it evolved over time.
That's great. And for those outside the Austin area, Saxon Pub is just one of the legendary venues in town that is
Right.
still open, for one, and is just an incredible, uh, not really a listening room, but it's a listening room. You get
Yeah, people
great
pay
quality
attention
sound.
there for sure. Yeah.
It's a beautiful, intimate setting. Highly recommend going to the Saxon Pub if you visit Austin. Uh, what I think what you're doing with Under the Rock ATX is awesome because artists go through a process to write a song and put it out there. And lyrics resonate with listeners in all different ways. Sometimes they might miss the intended message, or really get into it, or relate to lyrics, or even melodies in ways that the artist had no clue that people would do. So uh, you're giving a forum to artists to really kind of have them talk about their emotions being put out there. Uh, can you share, just maybe some of the things that have surprised you when you've gotten to talk with artists? And
Absolutely. Two quick points, and thank you for that beautiful setup. One is, and this is maybe useful for the audience even here to think about. You use the word artist. I use that word too. Like, that's no accident. We could call him musician, we could call him a band, but I really prefer the word artist. And artists create art. And just like what happens when we walk into a museum or the Blanton, you and I are going to have a different response to a piece of art. Maybe we love it, maybe we hate it, maybe you pay attention to one part and me the other. And that's what music is and can be, but people don't always think about that, you know? And so one thing I really actively encourage, I'll bring in my own responses, my own projections, as we call in psychology, but I kind of encourage the audience, hey, pay attention to your own, enjoy the show. We all love good music, but do more than that. Pay attention to how you're reacting. Write down a lyric or response or something that hits you at a certain moment and be reflective, be a reflective, active listener to the music. It is art. And so that's one thing we're encouraging. Kind of to your surprise question, which is a very good one, is 95% of the artists I've had on Under the Rock have just like loved it because they don't get that many questions about the lyrics and they don't get to actively discuss how other people are responding to them or how it's hitting them or the similarities or differences. And those folks are very, open to that process. They do generally agree with me that the song, once they put it out there, in some way isn't theirs anymore. It's ours. And that's like so beautiful of a thing for us to struggle and wrestle with. The other thing I found, and I've experienced this both as the host, moderator, and an audience member, um, is when bands just talk about their lyrics. I wrote this one because blah, 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 blah. Like, it's interesting, but in most situations, it's much more interesting if it's actually a conversation, like you and I are having. That's one reason these kind of interviews are useful to get that dialogue. Is generally more wow than just tell a story, listen to the song, unless you're just a mega superstar, and then we'll listen to anything you have to say, right? But the focus is on emerging or the next superstars in this city.
no, that's interesting because VH1 used to have a series called Storytellers, and
Yep.
artists would tell the story of the song or tell a story related to the song. And that's not the same as an audience member saying, "But wait a minute, on the second album, didn't you do something different? Why?"
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
a
something.
little bit of that.
Yeah.
I almost always go back to tell me a little bit more or share your response to what I just discussed, and as well as comment on what the song's original purpose is. So I usually throw that in there as an option too. But it's really both. It's bringing new reactions. We don't quite have it to the level where I'm taking audience responses and questions. There's definitely a way to do that and could be like almost a longer musical retreat. I mean, think about how cool that would be. And you mentioned like super fans. I think this was before we talked, but could you imagine that? Like, there is definitely a market to like spend a day with your favorite band where it really is more interactive and reflective. And hey, we got to note that as an idea, right?
It's, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I forgot exactly where I was going with that, but it's a combo of questions about the original intentions and an emerge kind of a fusion of psychology and music. I do try to bring something relevant. In fact, this is our logo for Under the Rock. Some people get it, some people don't, but this is a musical note, obviously, but this symbol, the psi, that's cut a little short there, stands for psychology. So that's kind of it's a merger of psychology and music.
I think that's fantastic. Uh,
Thank you.
when you were talking about the fact that you refer to musicians as artists, uh, it 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 makes me cherish my favorite thing about live shows is when something unexpected happens.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's a guitar going out or even great, well-practiced musicians will hit a wrong note or whatever.
Or miss a lyric.
Yeah, those are my favorite moments is seeing the moment of creativity where somebody needs to dodge and weave and band members just with a little look of an eye or nod of a head can adjust. Like that's, oh my God, that's the magic of the moment to me. And it's fleeting art, just like when you go see a live theater performance. No performance will ever happen like that again. Uh, and yeah, and what you're doing with Under the Rock is an examination that never happens again. You don't get a conversation like that with these artists, and the artists very likely have never had a conversation like that until then either.
Well, if I could add to one thing, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I will add that one kind of unique element to that surprising reaction or moment that wasn't anticipated or planned, etc., that happens often on the show is how questions hit the audience. Because I try to, and I'm learning and I've learned a lot, but I try to kind of push artists a little bit on their psychology, on their emotions. I'll share an example with you. This guy, Paul McDonald, who become friends with, and his dad is a psychologist. He's a big deal artist in Nashville. He actually is a five-time Opry performer, kind of Tom Petty rockish guy, like amazing, strongly recommended. I asked him a question about his song that just came out called Good Times and where it came from and my reaction. And he shared the story about his mom who was recently diagnosed with, I believe, terminal cancer or was really not looking good. And he asked her about what she wanted to do with the time she had left. And he was telling this story, but he's basically like, she looked at me and said, I just want to have a good time with the time I have left. And first of all, what a story. Second of all, he was crying as he told us that story, 80 people in a room, and it took about a minute, and one thing I didn't do is try and distract him or ask another question or make a little joke. We just hung with him. And then he sang that song and I encourage you to check that song out. And it was like freaking unbelievable. And then at the end, this is also awesome. And I've had some discussions with him actually in a car about this. He also likes to open up sets with this song because he also feel it's like a song about we have this time together, him and the audience. And what are we going to make with it? Let's do the best with the time that we have left. And one line in it is like, I locked, I, something like, I like talking to strangers, maybe a little bit too much or something like that. And it's just like this connection song between him and the audience and the time they have together. Meanwhile, it's based on like a hospital story between him and his mother. So what you said there, like, his show, his set was amazing. And I think you can see that clip, by the way, on at Under the Rock ATX of when he's talking about his mom and then a clip from the song. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's out there. Amazing. And that happens all the time. That's my favorite part, absolutely. And even if I fumble a question or make a joke, I think I've made a Freudian slip here and there in my show. Like, it's a little embarrassing to me. But then I like step up and be like, oh man, shows are about being moved, emotion, and entertainment. And if I add to that, at the expense of something I said or did, like, that's good. I can sleep at night from that.
Yeah. Um, so I can see very clearly your psychology career and path um, having this bridge over to music, which is unique and cool. Um, has there been an opportunity for your experiences with these artists to kind of funnel back, other than using examples in classes? Is that resonating with sort of your psychological community that, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, you're doing this? It's almost research, except that it's
Yeah.
fun and enjoyable.
That's a great question, and I appreciate you asking me. The answer is yes, but not until recently. I actually wrote an article kind of on that question because I think finally this is a moment where my worlds have collided in a good and productive way. We all have the like side hobbies and passions. I know you do too, and we need those, and they bring us kind of life and bring meaning to the various hats that we wear, but they're often kind of separate. We kind of do them side gig. Even the people we talk to are like, you're my people here, you're my people at work, right? And in the last year or so, I've been able to like kind of come out about my, connections with these audiences, about my Under the Rock show, which is very visible on Instagram and all that stuff. Like I'm kind of out there with it and forming relationships with these amazing, talented people. And now I can like do are you still there?
Oh
Kind of
yeah.
like, okay, cool. My screen went blank for a second. And now I can like bring that into my work world. And how is I'm now teaching a class at UT called Music and Mental Health. And it's a real popular class. It's up to 100 people. And I kind of teach about mental health and diagnosis through music. And then about 4 or 5 times, I'll bring in bands and artists to perform and share their experiences. Um, and that's been awesome and very well received. And now my new role in the Moritz Center that you mentioned is a program director of arts and humanities, and it's arts with a heavy emphasis on music. So I'm doing these shows in Dell Medical School, and we're bringing in artists and getting healthcare professionals to see if kind of music and guided discussion around lyrics can lead to um, burnout prevention and well-being indices and peer support and all these things. And we're going to do some research on that. So my worlds have finally collided. And also UT, I'll give a shout out to them. Like I think there's been a concerted effort to bridge that gap between one of the identities of Austin, which is live music, and bringing that in more with UT and the community from a program perspective, but also a research perspective. It's not quite there yet, but we're moving down that path.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I think and I had worked at the university for
Yeah,
15
I
years
remember
or
that.
so, and the University of Texas is big flagship university and it's professional and buttoned up. And I think there's been a struggle over the decades of, but we're also a cool university in a cool town. Like, how can we be cool and with the people, but also, compete with Harvard? It's
Yeah.
and so this seems like one of those opportunities where you can do academic stuff with cool musicians and they
Absolutely.
complement each other.
And conversely, and I've been so pleased to find this, when I've brought musicians on campus, almost all of them, it's been the first time performing or forget performing, even just walking around the 40 acres, and seeing the environment and the culture and walking around with their guitars and getting a coffee and then going to class. And it's just been like, awesome, you know? And I always ask my students to write a thank you, little thank you notes and stuff to the performers and just how moved they are um, by having a role in their day-to-day academic environment. It's one of those few moments, it's like, it's a real win-win. Like it's not much negative
Mhm.
anything going on.
Yeah.
And these days, that's not easy to please a lot of different, populations and people. So far, so good.
Yeah. I'd like to get your perspective, if you have some examples. Uh, you've worked with artists not just in Under the Rock, but you've also done some other promotional work or
Yeah,
working with up and coming artists, showcasing them and stuff. Um, a lot of the audience of this interview are up and coming professional musicians.
yeah.
Have you seen some things through the artists you've worked with that have made you think, man, that is a great idea to help them further their career? They're doing this really right. Or or have there been examples of you adding some suggestions or corrections like, hey, you're going in the right direction, but you're hitting a wall. Take this
Yeah.
turn. Sort of secrets or pitfalls or whatever that you've seen across this population of artists you worked with so far.
It's a good question. I've kind of avoided critiquing, which I think has helped. I'm more in the like helping and promoting and street cred building role myself.
Mhm.
I'm kind of a late ad one this is a little bit of a response, but I'm a kind of a late adapter to Instagram. But one realization I've had that bands have really appreciated and that I do, but has also come back to help me is just the cross promotion of stuff. Like even after my shows, I'll be like, hey, Madam Radar, don't miss their album release show. These guys, I've called them kind of like under alum Madam Radar with their album release party, or check out the Exiles going out in the like, and really, I'm not doing that for like, I don't have a sh next show with those bands. So I'm kind of done sharing the reels and talking and you know, and that is kind of new. And when I do that and obviously tag and collab them and blah, 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 um, they're like, they get it like right away there, So what do? They post that back and say, hey, thank you, Under the Rock. And so their followers who may have never heard about Under the Rock are like, why are my cats shouting out this show? So I think it makes sense. Like, and artists, I'm sure would agree, like they can talk up themselves and their next show and how great they are on bass or whatever. But guess what? It's always better when someone else does it. And when I've been doing that, some genuinely, I'll never do it if I don't feel like I want to do it or don't, not wild about the band. Um, that really helps. That brings attention. Other than that, I think musicians is a little bit of a stray on your question, but it's not easy. The promotion and the social media, it's a little exhausting. They have to, I mean, especially when you're going, you gotta, it's a good move to respond to all the fans. Meanwhile, you don't know all the fans, and that can be some like tricky territory. Like you love your fans, but sometimes you got to be careful of your fans.
Yeah.
Right? So, and that's like something that artists in the 80s and 90s didn't really have to deal with. They just put it out there or, maybe sent back took pictures and signed back some autographs and all that stuff. But it's not like in the moment they can always be reached. I don't envy that. And yet it's so important for emerging artists in building the brand, following Spotify, blah, blah, blah. Does that
Yeah.
kind of answer your question a little bit?
And I think what you underscored, I think there's sort of a resurgence happening in on social media that it started off with you just friend your family and your friends, and it was just another way to converse with your friends
Yeah.
about anything. and it has gone so much into a purposeful promotional thing. The fact that you have a moment where you, Aaron, on your Under the Rock ATX Instagram account say, "Hey, Madam Radar has a big show this Saturday."
Yeah.
That's getting to back to why social media started. Like
Yeah.
a human says something about a human to
Yeah.
to open a conversation. And I feel like there's a little renaissance or something happening on social media that we actually all want human connection and we want to build communities. Uh,
Yeah,
and
I think
through
it's
this,
well said. And one thing I've realized, I don't always put myself in this category, but it's kind of a leadership thing. Really good leaders, whether they're politicians or managers or running a business or CEOs, like really good leaders give a lot of love to everybody else, genuinely, authentically. And by doing so, it ends up making them kind of look good. Or like they know what they're doing, or they're a natural leader. I just told someone at the university, I won't share their name, that I really appreciated um, that skill that they have, and it's just kind of natural. Um, Sometimes when their people aren't authentic and they're giving out the love, then it seems very almost reverse self-focused. But if you're just genuine about helping people, that can really help you in your brand identity, growth, just what you're in it for.
I want to know, since you started Under the Rock, um, the the sessions that you have with artists are really incredible. Have you have you been deluged with requests? I mean, it's almost like you're a booking agent now.
That is a good question. And that is kind of one thing I struggle with. I wouldn't say deluged, I think was the beautiful word you used.
Is that even a verb?
Like, we'll go with it. Somebody AI that. I think you used it appropriately. I just don't ask me to spell it. Um, Not deluge, but definitely getting a lot. And that's been hard because I try and reply to everybody. Um, and I'd like to feature everyone, but I'm also at this point where um, I'm working with artists. First of all, kind of have to love them, or my questions and my interaction aren't isn't that genuine. Second of all, like for better or for worse, I am kind of a lyrics guy. Like I really want to hear the lyrics. I think thirdly, I want to hear some vulnerability and some natural connection to mental health and psychology with the music. And then fourth, which is the ugly part, but truthful part, like I need to sell some tickets. So I have a following and people who are paying attention to who I'm featuring, but it's definitely a collaboration who with artists who are at the level that, them putting their name on almost anything are going to get 30 people in the room. And then I hope to add another, 40 people in the room. And I'm at the Saxon Pub right now, which is a huge honor, and they've been amazing and they totally get it. And I wanna like keep the vibes, That's also why I haven't been over scheduling and been doing just about one a month. So yeah, and it's hard to say those four factors, right? When I get a request. So I try to kind of be cool about it. Um, but most people are kind of understanding, but yeah, I'm doing most of the hand selecting.
Uh-huh.
With that said, artists I'm dealing with have appreciated kind of what I'm doing, and also we haven't talked about this, but I'm really trying to document what I'm doing. And using video and getting into the reels. The other thing I've done in the last two shows that I'm a big believer in is I've had ASL concert trained interpreters. Hope you have a chance to look at those for the last two shows. So I'm a big believer in accessibility and the intersection between disability, accommodations, and fun and music. And so deaf and hard of hearing folks have been like having a blast at my show, and I hope to apply for a grant to be able to do more of that.
Yeah. You brought up just a concept that's tough for a lot of artists to get across even with something as wonderful and well intentioned with Under the Rock, you have good artists and you have incredible conversations and good moments. Um, but just like a band putting on a show, you need to put butts in seats.
Yeah.
Um, I'm sure the Saxon wants to sell drinks. Um, I think it was a musician, an Austin musician, Mark Rubin. He was in the Bad Livers and Kill Billy. I saw him speak maybe at a South by conference decades ago, and I think it was him with Bad Livers shows. They had one song where everybody bought a shot, and he was like, we kept getting asked back when we did that because if there's 150 people there, everybody has a beer or whatever, and then you sell 150 shots. Part of it is quality on stage and engaging, talent. But then, yeah, the venues, uh, they still have to pay their rent. And Saxon Pub, I can't imagine the rent down on on what are they, South Lamar.
Lamar. Lamar, yeah. Um,
It's a business also, and that's you. I think that's a good point that a lot of artists they're like, man, we're good, but we keep getting these off slots. It's a business also, and you have to consider the other people involved in the business.
well, the thing I think that's a great summary. I mean, the small piece I'd add to that is it's a balance. I mean, one thing I've learned in music, but also as a professor and gone to a lot of conferences and all that, song and dance, is never judge. And this is really important. It's one thing I try and say this a lot, like never judge the quality of a performance, musically, academically, socially, whatever, um, even athletically, by how many people are in the room. Pay attention instead to the reaction of those people in the room. And some people now and that's why I said balance. You have to balance that with all the things that you mentioned, and it is a business. But Saxon is a good example. Saxon, um, I've been at some shows where there's been like just me, maybe two people and the bar staff,
Mhm.
and it's been like, and the performer is the musician is putting on a performance like they're at the Red Rocks, uh, Madison Square Garden. And that's where I'm like, whoa, they got my attention. Actually, there's one artist that, in particular, I'll always remember for that. And since then, his name's Braydon Barnhill, has kind of signed a record deal, and he's, we'll see where he heads, but he got a hell of an opportunity. He's doing some great things. Um, Artists should never just base their value or their performance. And conversely, we've all been at packed rooms where it's kind of like, like going through the motions. Like, oh, maybe I could have listened to to the I almost said CD instead. So it's kind of like, of course it's important. I was just at a Zach Bryan show with 108,400 of my closest friends. I was at that show in Michigan.
Yeah, in the big house. What
It
an
was freaking unbelievable. We'll talk about that more offline. But like it's powerful when you're in a room with people, a space like, and Zach Bryan is brilliant. A, he's brilliant, but B, he's brilliant at just like, the 108,000 people they actually did half the performance. He just said nothing and just like took it all in, and it was amazing. So that can be wow to fill spaces and rooms, no matter how big. But, everybody, starts small. Mick Jagger at some point was playing in his garage. And so it's a reminder. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to be Mick Jagger or Zach Bryan. Absolutely not. But it's just a reminder that, like, a beautiful performance and music can impact people no matter how many people are in the room. But is it a struggle selecting artists? Yeah, for that reason. Absolutely.
yeah. Um, for artists listening to this right now or watching this right now who think, "Oh, I would be great on that." I don't want you to get inundated with a bunch of requests, but how would somebody start that conversation with you to see if their music and their
Yeah.
vibe is the right fit?
I mean, here's one thing I appreciate and maybe I'm biased towards, like come to a show, meet me.
Mhm.
Um, send me a message and I do check those DMs and stuff. That's always nice and share your stuff. But I've always appreciated folks that's like, all right, I'm gonna see what this cat's about in the show, and you know, I'm kind of a socialist. I think you know this, but I think I'm like a socialist when it comes to soccer and music. Like, buy a ticket, but if you really can't afford a ticket, let me know what you can afford. I'm gonna try and help you to get in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Not always, but I will try. I'm a soccer and music socialist, at least at this level where I'm at now. So I think that can be a good connection. Again, that's no promises, but then I get, then you see what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do, what we're trying to do, how I respond to the artists, and then at a minimum we can like have a relationship because I don't really feel that somebody's shooting, especially these days. Hey, I'd love to be on your show. Here's my Spotify link. It's all right. I mean, it's a decent start, but it's not really a relationship.
No, that's great. The phrase "make the scene."
Yeah,
You
yeah,
connect by going to a person's show and
yeah,
shaking their
yeah.
hand and visiting with them. No, that's such an important piece, whether it's with you for Under the Rock or just the
Whatever.
band, any connection.
Absolutely.
Um, your suggestion for doing this interview in person, I loved and has inspired me to get that set up so that I can do more interviews in
Oh,
person.
that's cool.
I couldn't do it for today, but yeah. Aaron, I think that's a good point. You hit
Yeah, we got it.
some home run hits there at the end that I think are very valuable. Thanks again for taking this time.
Thank you so much. Great questions. And I wish you all the best with the concept and your own growth. And let me know how I can help you out.
All right, likewise. Thanks, Aaron.
I will see you soon, bud.